Right, afternoon, guys. I've just decided on doing a bottom bait rig that I said I was going to do yesterday, but I forgot to record it halfway through. So all I've done is I've got some N-Trap soft. I've coated it. It was about 12 inch in about 11 inch in length. I've stripped back round about 2 inch off the end, form a loop for the bait to go on the air, and this is going to actually become the air. And then what I've tied on there is I've tied a micro rig ring onto that loop. I should really have recorded this, but I just forgot that. So now what we're going to do then is we're going to pass that rig ring over there. Now I do like it to come a little bit right, just opposite the barb. So we're really wanting it at that kind of no, that's a little bit too far round about there. We really want it at that. So then what we do then is we just come back through that, and then now it's just really the knotless knot, but you're doing it so it's got a pivoting point. And anyone that's above a certain age will know what this is. Just a blowback rig, but you're using a ring really. But a lot of people, including myself, I do like to use a 7 again. I always like to use it. I always do 7, and anybody that's watched me before will know that. But it doesn't matter how many you do. We could do 2 or 3, and I suppose it'd be all right. So back through with that now. So now we're at that section there. Now I normally leave these. You see, the other thing that you've got to make sure of here as well is your rig ring. You want it really to sit so it's running nice and flush with the hook. You don't want it kicking off at one angle. You want it to run nice and everything be straight with each other, like that. That's ideal. Now it may look like a long hair that, but there's a reason for that. But before we get to that, we're going to stick a piece of shrink tube on. That will go over that air, and it will kind of form kind of a noodle. I'll just pause you a sec, but I am going to steam this. Right then, guys. So now that's give us that. You see that? There. Now it will go further down. That needs steaming a little bit more. But for the time being, that'll do just fine, because the reason I've only steamed it at that is because I want to come through this edge, through this side with a baiting needle to form a liner. And it will kick over and get you every time, this rig. It's really effective, and it doesn't really need anything other than that, really, to be perfectly honest with you. It's deadly as it is, but it will get you every single time. Now to that, we're going to add, there's 2 baits to see what, and we're going to have to use a fairly large baiting needle. Well, it's for lead core, but it'll do job right. These are the new pineapple baits that are the format's doing at the minute. This, but now I do want to fish them as a snowman. I did used to do a lot with bottom baits, and I did used to use it, to be perfectly honest with you. At one time, I thought it was the only way of catching carp was with a bottom bait. I didn't reckon much to pop up at all. Nah, give me 2 seconds. So I'll take a small section of that off and just wheel it down. I ain't too bothered about the neatness of this, of the baits, and not that bothered about them being ultra neat and butting up tight to each other and all that crap. I ain't bothered about that, as long as they both sit like that. So then what we do then is we come back through the top of the small, pop up which, like I said, the baiting needle is way too big for this job, but it'll do for this demonstration of this. So then we come through that again, push the baiting needle through, and then what we're going to do is we're going to come right through that loop, gaiter over, and we're going to pull that down. Now that's going to do now is it's pretty much near enough done. Now is this rig. The only thing I would do with it is I would fish it with. Now that's the rig pretty much done, to be perfectly honest with you. I do like it the way it sits like that, and I would always fish it either with a PVA nugget or with a small piece of a small PVA bag, not much bigger than that 20mm bait. The bag would never be much bigger than that, and all you're gonna get is when the fish is hooked, the bait will fall back out of the way of the hook, and that's the whole point of all these rigs, is to get that bait out of the way of that hook, so that hook can't come into contact with the bait, or it tangle round and cause you any problems. It's just all about keeping it away from that. Now that I'm happy with that. That's a really nice looking rig. All it needs now is it needs a little bit more steaming, and it needs I need a finer baiting needle. Now I'll see if I can find one, but I ain't sure what I've done with them, to be perfectly honest. But I know they're about somewhere. Hang on, I've got one here. So all we'll do with this is we come through the side of this material, pull that out now. So then it just kicks out just a little touch from the top there, so it's just give it a slight line there. So all that's going to do now is it's going to make it kick out even more. So it's going to get, every single time it will get you, and it's on a flat palm test, it'll get you on every single time. It's a much rather test them on a flat palm, and it will get you every time. It really, that the liner bit, it don't necessarily need that, to be perfectly honest with you. It's effective as it is. It don't really need that liner bit, if I'm perfectly honest, but it's I always do it anyway. Now I will steam it a little bit more, just for the purposes of getting the rig tubing down just a touch smaller. That's the one. So what I've ended up with now is that. Now that's a rig that I used for absolutely years, and it's probably one of the first boilie rigs I ever used. Now the shrink tubing looks a lot, that tubing looks a lot actually thicker than it is. It's really small diameter, but it's looking bigger on there. It's actually it's quite thin. But I do like that to be slightly more curved in than that. For the other reason as well, is if pop-ups seem to be doing well, then all I have to do is just slip that a little hinge back there, and it'll fish quite effectively as a pop-up rig. But I do like it better as a bottom bait rig. I ain't fussed about all these being perfectly neat with each other and all that. I wouldn't even be bothered if they had a gap in between, if I put a piece of PVA foam in between them and there were a gap. It wouldn't bother me at all, that. I'm not bothered about stuff like that. It makes no difference to me. And it makes a difference to rig, to be perfectly honest with you, but it does look more natural if there's a gap with it. But that's the end of rig, and it's just my version of blowbite rig, the old blowbite rig. And I finish it off with I finish it off in a couple of ways. The first one is I like it to be weighted down. So we get a couple of the Fox sinkers, which these are another thing that's a nightmare. These Fox sinkers, they start off alright, but once you've had them a while, they're a nightmare to get your line through, to be honest. But you have to open it up. Like that. Now we just knock that open, and then we just put that through, pull that back on itself, and then we pull a medium sinker onto the line. I don't like these. These are quite a necessity as far as I'm concerned. You be very careful though not to kink your line. See how it's kinked there? Now I'm going to be doing this as a tied off, and it's going to have a sleeve over it anyway, an anti-tangle sleeve over it anyway. Now it's going to be a PVA bag. It's going to be fished in a PVA bag, so I'm not that worried about that end bit. But if that would have been on a normal rig, that bit there, and you would have tied a looping end here, you'd have been in serious bother, because I'm telling you now, that would have been Tangle City. So we form as loop just below that, and what we do is we form as loop there, and we take that loop to there, and then back through, back on itself, pull down, make sure it's nice and tight. That's perfect. Chop that off, and there we go. PVA bag, getting fish. In total, it's 6 inch long. Now in a bag, it fishes really well in a bag. It's all I would do is before I put it in a bag, is I would wrap 2 pieces of PVA foam around the top section of it there. So that's holding pretty much that, and the rest of it can go in bag, and it'll fish great as a PVA bag rig. If you just add on to that, you just add a longer section onto it, it'll fish nice just as a bottom bait and a spreader bait. But I do like it in a PVA bag, and it always has to have that section that's going to kick them baits away from it. Once that's in that fish's mouth, I like them baits to be well out of weight, so they can, because believe it or not, there's quite a bit of weight in them 2 baits. So I do like them to be a little bit away if possible from the actual hook. I want them to be, once it's in the fish's mouth, I want it to be out at weight at fish, and it does that exactly. So you've got no pivoting point of getting off. Now sometimes with some of these rigs that they tell you on YouTube, you can actually get 2. It can be 2 where that the boiler can get wrapped round and all that, and you could just end up with tangles, and then you end up giving up on bottom bait rigs. So definitely, it's worth a try, that one, guys. It's a blowback rig, really nice rig, and a rig that I'm really going to be using a lot this year, because I really do need to get back to my bottom bait fishing. I think I'm missing out on fish through not fishing a bottom bait, and that is a definite. If I don't think I know I'm missing out on fish through not using a bottom bait. So there you go, Snowman PVA bike. That'll have them.